Today we're unpacking a literally jaw-dropping story about power, betrayal, and what actually happens when the hidden foundations of a relationship and a business are just suddenly ripped away. We're going to explore the real mechanics of sweat equity and the very precise art of unbuilding. Our source material today is this fascinating case study of two partners, Zara and Liam. And honestly, it is a chillingly perfect illustration of what happens when the invisible work that holds everything together just stops.
So picture this. Liam and Zara have been together for 2 years. They're building a life and supposedly building a whole future together. Then, one random night, the entire illusion shatters. Zara happens to see a notification light up on Liam's phone. It's a message from a woman named Alina, and the text is just devastating. It reads, "Last night was amazing. When will you leave Zara?" Just take a second to really absorb the weight of that. 2 whole years of shared dreams and sacrifices, completely upended by a dozen words. And that brings us to the core question of today's explainer. What is the exact price of betrayal? When the absolute foundation of your shared life and your business gets shattered by something so callous, what's the actual cost? Now, usually we think about the emotional toll, right? The heartbreak, the messy separation. But as we're about to see with Zara, the price of betrayal can be calculated in a much more literal, systematic way.
Section 1. The Invisible Engine. Sweat Equity. To really grasp how this whole thing unravels, we first have to understand how it was put together.
The sheer scope of what Zara was pulling off behind the scenes is just wild. The source notes that Zara actually gave up her own dream internship. She made this massive personal sacrifice to support Liam's startup, and she wasn't just, offering moral support from the sidelines. She was the operational machine. She managed Liam's daily schedule, she handled all the business finances, she even wrote his crucial business emails for him. And perhaps most importantly, she built and maintained the entire business analytics dashboard. She was literally doing the work of an entire executive team completely in the shadows. And this perfectly highlights a concept we need to define right now: invisible labor. This is that unpaid and often totally unacknowledged work that actually sustains a business or a system. It's the sweat equity that never makes it onto a formal cap table. It's the grease in the gears. See, Liam was the face of the startup. He's taking the meetings, shaking the hands, but Zara was the invisible labor keeping the lights on, which makes what happens next so absolutely devastating. Which brings us to Section 2, the catalyst of betrayal. The illusion shatters. Let's go back to that night and that text message.
Now, human nature tells us that when you see a text message like that, your immediate reaction should be explosive, right? Screaming, crying, demanding answers right then and there. But that is not what happened here. Zara didn't cry. She didn't confront him. She simply smiled. It's a remarkably calm, almost chillingly composed reaction. In that fraction of a second, Zara didn't just see a cheating partner, she saw a fundamentally flawed business structure. And instead of getting mad, she got methodical.
Section 3. The Art of Unbuilding. A quiet operation. Honestly, this is where the story gets truly fascinating.
Zara didn't smash Liam's laptop. She didn't key his car. Instead, over the next week, she executed a quiet, surgical operation to just undo her invisible labor. Step 1, Liam had this massive investor meeting he'd been waiting months for. Zara logs into his email, replies to the investor with, "We withdraw," and then, and this is the genius part, she deletes the sent message. He had zero clue it was gone. Step 2, she calls his biggest client and politely resigns on his behalf, citing ethical differences, a totally professional yet absolutely fatal blow. And finally, Step 3, as she's packing her bags, she simply changes the password to the business analytics dashboard, the one she built. She didn't delete the data, she just locked the front door of the house she constructed.
And that leads us right into Section 4, the calm confrontation. Time bombs go off.
So when Liam finally wakes up to the absolute disaster surrounding him, the canceled investor, the lost client, the locked dashboard, Zara is already gone. He calls her, completely freaking out, screaming, demanding to know what she did, and Zara responds with this incredible, grounded truth. "I didn't destroy your business, Liam. I just stopped building it." This completely reframes the whole situation. She didn't commit an act of sabotage. She simply withdrew her invisible labor. She stopped donating her sweat equity to a guy who betrayed her. The collapse wasn't caused by her destruction, it was caused by her absence.
And before Liam can even process that logic, she drops the final devastating blow. She tells him, "You should have thought about that before you built something with someone else." It's pure, undeniable cause and effect. He begged her to fix it, and she just hung up the phone.
Let's move to our final section, Section 5, Taking back power. The consequences. What are the real-world consequences of yanking the invisible engine out of a startup?
The timeline of a crumbling foundation is shockingly fast. We start with the breakup, where Zara cleanly packs up and leaves. Then comes the realization phase, where Liam discovers the logistical nightmare he's in. But look at number 3. Just 2 months later, Liam's startup completely collapses. Without Zara managing the schedule, the money, the communications, and the data, the business literally could not sustain its own weight. It folded in 60 days.
But wait, because the story doesn't end with Liam's failure, there is a brilliantly executed twist. Zara starts her own startup, and who's backing her? Liam's former investor. And who's supporting her? Liam's former best client. Zara realized that she was the one who actually cultivated those relationships. The value didn't lie in Liam's ideas. The value was in Zara's execution. So she simply ported her own value over to a new venture where she was the boss.
The ultimate takeaway from this explainer really boils down to the difference between these two concepts. What Zara did feels a lot like revenge, right? But revenge is actively destroying what someone else has built. Zara didn't do that. What she did was reclaiming. She simply took back her own talent, her own time, and her own power. She took back what was always rightfully hers to begin with. When you look at it through that lens, it isn't sabotage at all. It's just a very abrupt, very final resignation from an unpaid job.
Which leaves us with a whole lot to chew on regarding our own lives and partnerships. Whether it's in a relationship, a family, or a workplace, so much of what keeps the world turning is invisible labor. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative question to reflect on. If you stopped doing your invisible work today, what would collapse tomorrow? It's a pretty powerful way to measure your true worth. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Value your sweat equity, and I'll catch you next time.